Very powerful statement. Over here in the back.
So I want to put something in context just really quickly, which is this idea that we're talking about a political machine as if the system works perfectly, right? And I say that to say that, long term, it is definitely a good strategy to figure out how we build a political independent party. But short term, being us voting or us supporting a candidate doesn't at all in any way, shape, or form help the situations that communities of color face right now, right? And this idea that policy follows culture, we have to remember that policy follows culture, right? And so in order for us to really make headway change, like we got a Civil Rights Act, it didn't mean that black people could vote, right? So the policy must follow the culture. We have to begin at the grassroots level, changing the culture, saying to folks that, hey, it's a good idea, speaking to ordinary community folks saying, hey, it's a good idea for us to build a political machine long term, right? But we have to have community folks behind us. And I think that you said it perfectly when you talked about the leaders can't be so far ahead of the community that the community is left behind. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about not perpetuating the same system of accountability where politicians are supposed to be held accountable to us and they're not, we need the leaders need to also, the organizers need to also be about that same system of accountability, of making sure that the community is standing behind them and that they are adhering to the wishes of the community. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't think about building a political machine, but I'm saying that our communities at this point is not at that stage. It's going to take a lot of debate. It's going to take a lot of conversations. It's going to take a lot of understanding. I think one of the greatest things that Ella Baker ever said was this idea that it's not enough to just know your history. You must also understand it. The act of understanding only comes if you talk to ordinary community members, have them debate, have them set a process in place that they fall behind. And then the organizers' roles is to adhere to the process that community members have fallen in place. But we cannot talk about being a part of a system that was never originally set up for any of us. Like, and we heard it say here over and over, time and time again, the Constitution wasn't built for us. Let's be very clear about it. According to the Constitution, we are 3/5 of a person, right? And let's start there. And so we need to really acknowledge the fact that it takes the first step in anything is for us to go back to our community, respectable communities, to begin to have these conversations, come to common understanding. And then to your question, you talked about how do we begin to sustain political power. I think that it stems from this idea of education, right, and who controls our education. One of the greatest things that Malcolm X said is that education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today, right? And so this idea that we begin to teach our own people, because if you get out of a person what you put into them. So if you're constantly putting into them this idea that your history is only about slavery, only about Jim Crow, only about segregation, you don't tell them the other half, that you come from kings and queens, that you come from a rich history of folks that have struggled, that built monuments, that established civilizations to govern themselves, that you come from a rich history as well, that you are breeded as a prince, as a princess, that you come from a long line of royalty blood, then you're ultimately going to get out of them the same system that the history books teaches us, that we're not worth anything, that we're only 3/5 of a person. So the solution to maintaining political power is ensuring that we are teaching our education, that education in the history books is not so tampered with by the system of white supremacy that our young people cannot see past more than what the history books teach them. Okay. So we have to begin to code our own history.
Okay, hold on 1 second. You have to have a microphone. Over here, please.
To an earlier stance, they asked about the electoral approach. I'm a believer in the electoral approach. One of the reasons why, because the way that we can't fight the system, so we can fight the system, but you can also fight the system for within, knowing the system and knowing the rules and knowing how it operates, and so you can have that system work into your favor. And if we was to use the grassroots approach and hold our elected officials accountable If we go into the local level, into your district offices, and you tell them these are our demands, and this is what we want you to stand for. The reason why this is coming to a point where we don't have any type of action, because where's the community? Where's the community? When you sit here and say, okay, we're in Baltimore, the Greenmount community, where's that organization? And when you're saying, okay, our list of demands are here, and we could pull all together, all these different neighborhoods, so we can say, okay, these are our concerns from this area, and then we all come together on electoral and vote on what will we would present to the council so we can vote on. We need to have some type of agenda so when somebody comes and say, what are your demands, we all know what it is and we can have it voted on. And if you're talking about money, economics, that's when you go into the district office. Once again, you tell these public officials to vote on, to let's go ahead and create youth opportunities. Put the funding back inside of the community, give these youth something to do. Then you also say, all right, let's get these after-school programs. Let's go ahead. We have the ability to go inside these hearings and see what they're putting our money towards. You can say get the appropriation need to go into economics. The appropriation need to go inside the small business. Stop giving tax credits to the large corporations and doing disenfranchising mom and pops. The people that's inside the community, they know the people. It's time that we take the power back and we're going to go into it on a grassroots level, in a real grassroots level, back into our communities.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, right over here.
I think the question that was on the table is how do you give the power back to the community? And I think that's to make the people aware that they have the power. And to do that, I think it's some very simple tactics that are being overlooked. Like right now, there's all these mass movements of protest, but people don't have a hub or organization to go back to support them after it's over. So after the hashtag protest, after the first week, you're out there, who do you go to? But these places and these people are there. I think that's the good thing about it in the first place, because you're able to meet other people who are able to support your cause. They're able to say, hey, we have this spoken word group and we talk about mass incarceration and this is how we get it out. And you all could come back to us. Or we have this organic farming organization and we're out here. But how many people are actually engaging in those discussions afterward? So I think the thing is we need to stop looking at it, putting the power into other people's hands and taking responsibility, because we say we like people need to do this or they need to do that, but everyone here has the responsibility to walk outside. You see somebody, you could say hello, you could ask them how their day is, and you could spark up a conversation and ask them, you know, just about the world in general. And I think those are the first steps to building community. And then you see who actually supports you and who doesn't support you. There's places that, you know, you shouldn't shop in. If they ask you for your bag, maybe you shouldn't go there because they don't believe in you as a human being and they don't think you're humane. Or if they have bulletproof glass, like, hey, I'm not going to shop here until you get rid of that. So I think we just need to come from a human perspective instead of thinking about Democrats, Republicans first.
And start making connections ourselves, like you were saying, in very small ways. Okay, I have so many questions and we literally only have a few minutes. So I'm just gonna have time to take two more comments.
I've been waiting for 20
No,
years.
I know this woman has been here for a while, so I'd like to get her as well. She's been waiting for quite a long time too.
No, I just wanted to sort of backtrack the conversation to what Professor Morgan was talking about in terms of the historical context. We've been talking a lot about history, the imperative word being history. We leave out, I think it's important to, and this might be my bias as an educator and artist, but we live in a white capitalist patriarchy. We don't just live in a system of racism. We also live in a system of capitalism and patriarchy, which oppresses women of color and people of color equally, if not more. Our intersected identities histories have been forgotten. And often when we think about the histories and the narratives of resistance, we don't talk about women of color. So I wanted to bring that to the forefront. Zora Neale Hurston in 1954 talked about the problems with Brown versus Board. And she said, number one, that it would cancel out black male teachers. Number two, that it would take away black leaders in the schools. And number three, that it would send a message that we don't believe that our culture is strong enough for our own children to be in our own schools. And she was ahead of her time. She was correct. Her male counterparts were not on board. Thurgood Marshall, Richard Wright, all disagreed with her. But as we can see from her prophecy, this is true. She also alluded to the fact that we would see a lot more mental health issues in the black community, a lot more suicides, a lot more in-school suspensions. The terror of the black male rapists would come up with white female teachers. And so now we have, I think it's important for us to think about the privileges that we bring to the table in terms of thinking about education as a tool of liberation, because our ancestors, our foremothers and forefathers use education as a tool to create community. And I'm not talking about schooling, I'm talking about education. So just those simple rethinking about what education should be. Also, I think when we think about these liberation movements, such as with Marcus Garvey and Amy Jatz Garvey, we also have to think about the way that they structure their demands. Because even though their demands were valid, they cannot necessarily be copied and pasted to 2015. We have a new set of issues, right? There's a lot more gray in the world than it was for some of our foremothers and forefathers, so we have to think more critically about this. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that I wanted to challenge us to not dismiss our allies, because every movement has had allies. We cannot dismiss radical white folk who've been a part of Black power movements. We cannot dismiss radical men who've been a part of radical women movements. We cannot dismiss our radical gay brothers and sisters who've been a part of radical movements, such as James Baldwin and R.G. Lord, who've helped us to get to these points. And if we don't continue to create education around that in our communities, we are going to perpetuate some of the same problems. And I think that we, even within this room, we have to be mindful of the power dynamics that we have, such that we're not perpetuating smaller instances of internalized oppression, which I think is really critical.
Okay, that was very insightful. Thank you very much. Okay, we have time for one more comment. Okay, over here in the back.
My man.
Here you are.
Thank you. Okay, so what I noticed people, everybody's been alluding to is a circular format. What are we doing to ensure that everything is circular? What is an equation? An equation is this equals that and that equals this. We need a system. We need mathematics. I think mathematics has been underrated completely in our education. We need to make sure that that every step on every level is taken care of. We need to experiment, do serious studies on, closed systems. And I don't think that we need to stay in a certain state or whatever. From circular comes spiral. Like that's a growing circle is a spiral. So what we need is a platform, a formula, an equation that shows that includes everyone.
Okay. Thank you. You wouldn't happen to work with the algebra project. You were mentioning mathematics. Okay, so we are just going to get a moment from all of our panelists. Just quick final words, like just tell us what you hope we accomplish in this session and what you hope that we'll accomplish in the future.
Well, I mean, I hope starting that folks not only here, this was a day in which around the South in particular, over 20 different cities did some protest action against police brutality and police misconduct. And most of that was yet led by young people who have decided to step out and do that. And so my hope is that this is a spark where we can join with those groups that have been doing stuff in Ferguson, that have been doing stuff in New York, that has been doing stuff across the country and the West Coast, and come back and do it again, actually. Pick a time when we come back and we do this kind of thing again, because I think only through continually to project our power both in the streets and in other places will we start to win some real victories.
All right, thank you, Kamal Franklin.
My hope is something similar to Mr. Kamal Franklin's, really to see how we can not only continue to have a conversation, but what we could actually do together, despite what people may believe or what they may think, how we can move forward together, or if we could work together, and how would that look, and what would that look like?
All right, Tef Poe, what you get out of this?
For me, it goes back to, just the situation that's going on in my city is that we don't have the luxury of waiting on the Democratic Party. Jay Nixon is a Democrat. Bob McCulloch is a Democrat. People say we didn't vote. People did vote. That's how they got in office. So for me, it just goes back to creating something new. And I don't necessarily know what that new thing looks like. But I do know, like, if you're in a relationship with a girl and you find out she's cheating on you, you're not going to wait till you get the new girlfriend. So
I hear you.
So I feel like we're in a dysfunctional relationship, and I
Yes.
think that we could keep
Got it. All right,
we could keep hinting at ways to go around that, but that's really what it is at this point.
got it. Paul J., senior editor.
It's hard to follow that. I just let everybody know, first of all, thank you from The Real News for coming. We, in a month or two, are going to have a television show from 7 to 8 o'clock in a million houses from Baltimore to D.C. and all the areas around. And this will be nightly, 7 to 8 p.m. And we want to make this conversation a conversation that tens of thousands of people are having. We're going to be doing investigative journalism, reporting. We're not going to wait for anybody to investigate. And when we cover these situations, whether it's police abuse or brutality, or whether it's ordinary people killing ordinary people, the way that gets dehumanized on local TV, well, we're not going to do that. And the most important thing, and I think it's what's happened here tonight and what our news is going to be, or is and going to be more all about, is how are we going to find really effective solutions and get people engaged in making those solutions real. So I hope you'll let everybody know about the town hall. It'll be on the Real News website in a couple of days. And once we're on TV, I hope you'll help us defeat NBC and CBS and Fox. And
All right. Good plug. Sydney.
For me, more so, my goal is to let people know that we're here. This is not a momentary thing. This movement never ended. People were working underground since the beginning of the civil rights movement, and just because you don't see people, plastering themselves all over television does not mean that we are not working. This movement does not have an end date. And we are here, and we will continue to disrupt your daily lives until we get what we deserve. Black people and brown bodies do not have the luxury of not being inconvenienced on a daily basis. So yes, we will shut down your streets for however long we deem necessary to get our point across. We will lock down your malls. We will lock down your banks. We will come to your jobs. We will not spend our money where we don't deem it necessary. And if you don't get with the program, then you will be inconvenienced like we are day in and day out.
Okay. Very powerful. Eddie Conway?
And, what I want people to take away from this is the step beyond that is work in the community, build structures, build institutions, empower your damn self.
All right. Nice and simple. I love it. Short and sweet. All right, let's move over here. Let's start off with Jared.
Well, since we're taping on Dr. King's birthday, I would like just to shout him out by saying that we should remember and honor him as he was, not in the image he's been ossified in by our enemies. And remember to slightly challenge what Brother Franklin said. Dr. King made the point that that real leadership is not consensus seeking, but consensus molding. So I hear your point, and what you all did in Jackson is phenomenal. But I would on some level like for us to consider, particularly those of us who claim we already understand that these problems need new solutions, that we organize amongst ourselves first and develop some sort of advanced effort. I don't know exactly what that is either. And I don't want to wait for my new girlfriend. So, but are you married? Happily. Happily. I was just trying to riff off my man's comment. Easy. But my point is that I would like us not to be afraid to be some sort of radical vanguard of some sort of stripe, and to try something else and to try something new and provide an example to bring others to catch them up to us eventually. And as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Yusuf?
We kind of started this segment off asking what is unfinished. And so when you look at Malcolm, you look at the party, you look at Estada, who's in Cuba, that continue to persecute, the struggle of fighting for liberation, the struggle of freeing our political prisoners, the struggle of building our communities, liberated zones, what we call restoring the neighborhood back to the hood. You know, having boots on the ground, being able to empower young men and women in our community. Also, our brothers and sisters that's in these dungeons, that's in these prisons, going back in there and pulling them out. But more importantly, you know, we said a lot of great things, but it's important that we do a lot of great things.
Yeah.
We said a lot of great things, but we got to do a lot of great things.
Okay. Nalini Stamp?
Yes, well, thanks to The Real News for having me and us here. I think, you know, going along the lines of like where we started and what we're talking about, what I didn't hear though today was talking about the victories that do happen. There are a lot of victories that people who are struggling out there, who are fighting, there are independent political candidates. There are candidates that have done some radical things out there. They might be small, but we gotta start celebrating those. And we really gotta start owning that too, because that is something that, you know, we talk about education, it is about the history, but it's also right now. I learn every day that there's something when we are, at the same time that we're losing, we're also winning, which is a weird situation, but it's still good. That means we're struggling, right? So I really want us to lift up that. And what the sister said over here, you know, when we were talking about different camps and different bases, you know, I'm just surprised that we didn't really talk about Asada just until right now. We didn't talk about Ella Baker or Diane Nash, who are very important to the movements. So I just want to honor those sisters who came before me and gave me what it is to be here today.
All right. Really great final words. That's going to do it for us here at The Real News. I'm Jessica Devereaux, and I'd like to thank all of our guests and our audience members. And as I said before, we're going to be continuing this discussion. We are going to have a series of these town halls. So please, if you're in the area, reach out to us. We'd love to see you here. Thank you for watching The Real News Network.